Here's the brief news from the world over this week. House Republicans on Thursday passed their long-sought-after health care bill. It was a nail-biter for House Speaker Paul Ryan and President Donald Trump. 6 weeks after a jarring defeat, conservatives backed the revamped American Health Care Act with one vote to spare. In a final tweak, key moderate votes were secured when monies were increased to help seriously ill people with pre-existing medical conditions. Some other specifics. The bill eliminates Obamacare's individual mandate to carry insurance. It erases all the Obamacare tax increases. It rolls back the Medicaid expansion and lets states impose work requirements on Medicaid recipients. Subsidies for Obamacare marketplace premiums will be converted into tax credits that rise with consumers' ages. The measure retains family policies covering grown children until the age of 26. States could opt out of some other Obamacare requirements, and the bill would block federal payments to Planned Parenthood for a year. Now it all goes to the Senate, where it will no doubt change. More on this, the bipartisan federal budget, and more in our next segment. Also on Thursday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order targeting an IRS rule that threatens the tax-exempt status of religious organizations and other nonprofits that endorse political candidates. The order also promises regulatory relief for groups with religious objections to requirements in the Affordable Care Act, including mandating birth control and abortifacient coverage. Trump announced the executive order from the Rose Garden, and the Little Sisters of the Poor were in attendance.
We take historic steps to protect religious liberty in the United States of America. We will not allow people of faith to be targeted, bullied, or silenced anymore. And we will never, ever stand for religious discrimination. Never, ever.
Trump signed the order on the National Day of Prayer after meeting with religious leaders from a variety of faiths. He also announced his first foreign trip, which will include stops in Israel, Rome, and Saudi Arabia. And new rumors are surrounding the U.S. Supreme Court and the possible retirement of longtime Justice Anthony Kennedy. Kennedy has been the crucial swing vote on the high court for more than a decade. He sided with the liberal justices in cases on abortion rights, the death penalty, and he wrote the 2015 decision creating the civil right to same-sex marriage. Then he has sided with conservatives on gun rights, religious liberty, and limiting federal regulations. The 80-year-old Justice Kennedy has served on the court since 1988. He is refusing so far to comment on the speculation. President Trump said this week if Kennedy does retire, he would choose from the same list of candidates he unveiled during the campaign. And Pope Francis weighed in on North Korea and diplomacy this week. During his in-flight press conference returning from Egypt, the Pope said, "It is the United Nations that must reassert itself and provide strong leadership while focusing on peaceful negotiation with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un." The rogue communist nation continues to build its nuclear and missile programs, disregarding several UN Security Council resolutions. The Pope also offered some specific suggestions to the United States in handling the crisis. He said perhaps a country such as Norway should mediate talks between Washington and North Korea. In North Korea, U.S. interests are already represented by Sweden. President Donald Trump has said that if diplomatic efforts fail, the U.S. could decide to engage directly with North Korea to end its nuclear weapons program. And in a surprise move, the Vatican has agreed to establish diplomatic relations with Myanmar. The announcement came earlier this week, minutes after Pope Francis met with Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi, the country's top civilian leader. Myanmar's government emerged from military rule in 2015. Francis has appealed for prayers for the Muslim minority who face discrimination in the Buddhist-majority country. In February, the Pope denounced how the victims had been tortured and killed simply because they were continuing their traditions and their Muslim faith. The Vatican said the decision to establish diplomatic relations would promote bonds of mutual friendship. And the Vatican is continuing to push for a global governance to affect and promote policies of social change. President of the Pontifical Academy of Social Science, Margaret Archer, said that the Catholic Church is focusing its attention on international, non-governmental organizations such as the UN. Archer was speaking at a Vatican conference titled "Toward a Participatory Society, New Roads to Social and Cultural Integration." She said the state of national politics is terrible, pointing specifically to Brexit and Frexit, the possible French exit from the EU. Archer proposes that since there is not a government of the globe, we must turn to the UN and other international associations as they are, quote, the only authorities capable of affecting policies on poverty, climate change, migration, terrorism, and the like. And at the same conference, the Pope had some tough words for libertarians. The Holy Father said libertarians deny the value of the common good in favor of radical selfishness. He continued, deriding them as an anti-social radicalization of individualism, even at the cost of excluding and marginalizing the more vulnerable majority. According to this mentality, the Pope claims all relationship ties must be eliminated, since they would limit freedom, even the relationship with God Himself. In March, Pope Francis told leaders of the EU that the populist movements that are sweeping parts of Europe and elsewhere are fueled by egotism. And the Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas, has severed its ties with the Girl Scouts of America. According to the Archdiocese, Girl Scouts programs have become immersed in causes that are incompatible with the Catholic faith, specifically the organization's support of abortion and contraception. In a statement, Kansas City Archbishop Joseph Naumann said the Girl Scouts are, quote, no longer a compatible partner in helping us form young women with the virtues and values of the gospel. Naumann went on to ask pastors to end the sale of Girl Scout cookies on parish property. And he's encouraging involvement with the American Heritage Girls, a Christ-centered character development program for girls 5 to 18. And Pope Francis has proclaimed the late Vietnamese Cardinal Françis-Xavier Van Thuan as venerable. The announcement marks a significant step in the canonization cause of the Cardinal, who led a remarkable and heroic life of suffering. 6 days before the fall of Saigon in 1975, then Father Van Thuan was appointed coadjutor Archbishop of Saigon. The atheist communist regime subsequently arrested him and sent him to a re-education camp for 13 years. 9 of those he spent in solitary confinement. While imprisoned under harsh conditions, he celebrated Mass in the palm of his hand with smuggled breadcrumbs and droplets of wine. Years later, Pope St. John Paul II appointed him prefect of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace. He died in 2002, and 5 years later, Pope Benedict opened his cause for sainthood. I was honored to interview the Cardinal several years ago. Go to my Facebook or Twitter pages for the link. And the Will Wilder 2 book tour continues. I will be in Chicagoland on Friday, May 5th, signing books at Anderson's Bookshop in LaGrange, Illinois at 7 p.m. On Saturday, May 6th, I'll be in Dallas, Texas at the Northwest Highway Barnes & Noble at 3 p.m. And then on Sunday, May 7th, I'll be in beautiful Houston, Texas at the Half Price Books on Westheimer at 2 p.m. Later, on May 17th, I'll be in Boston, Massachusetts at the Boston Marriott in Newton. All the details are at RaymondArroyo.com. I'm having such an incredible time on this tour, I cannot tell you. It is soul-filling. Great experience.